let's talk camp, because we're 2 days in, and even though it's all about business, there are some early standouts at camp. First, honestly, we talk about like the guy who the most improved player. 2 days in, early candidate, Jordan Mason. We always say he's good, but like we know he's limited. He runs the ball well, but he doesn't have enough of his game to play. Clearly, he doesn't do enough on passing downs in terms of blocking or receiving. Well, every day, this goes back to OTAs and minicamp, they call passes for him. That Brock Purdy will throw a screen to him, or a check down, or a Texas route, or he has a whole route tree. And he's shorthanded, and he's really hard to tackle. Christian McCaffrey was asked about him today, and he's improved a ton, and he's really become a more complete running back. So that's the one early standout, Jordan Mason.
One thing that I like about Jordan Mason is that, unfortunately, I have him as a trade candidate. They picked up the running back out of the Packers. They signed him for the same amount of money that they signed Jordan Mason for. He's the same archetype as far as a tough runner, same size. But I don't know. We'll see. One thing that we have talked about is that with Christian McCaffrey getting his money at this stage of his career, that they're going to have to start insulating him at some point, or at least taking him out of the backfield and finding more like easier carries or easier reps for him to be able to preserve his body. We lucked out by not having Christian McCaffrey go down for an extended period of time last year. And the only way for us to be able to do that is to be able to put Jordan. This is one thing about Jordan Mason that I feel for our offensive line. It's like, okay, cool. They don't value the position, whatever. We're not necessarily the biggest physical offensive line. We know that. But for what it's worth, can you at least get me going downhill from the quickest point A to point B position for our offensive line? And when you do it, do you mind giving it to our hardest runner? Okay, so we can create our own chaos with the run game. Like having a tough runner with an offensive line who may not be as physical kind of marries together. It actually makes the running game better. And it's something that you do see with Jordan Mason, where he is such a tough runner that you can actually use him and his reps to actually take some pressure off of the offensive line when Christian gets back in, because you're going to have a much more malleable defensive front because you're running with a much tougher runner. I mean, it's something that I know Kyle knows, so I'm not going to sit here and say that he doesn't. But being able to switch up tempos with different styles of runners is something that people have been using since Moses was in short pants, man. Like, come on, bro. Use the different tempos of the backs that you have to be able to keep the defensive line off kilter. But if you got a defensive line where it's like, all right, we're looking for the cutback, we're fast. It's basically like you keep running with Christian, you get a defensive line that's good enough, they're just going to play around the offensive line. It's like we're faster than them, we're stronger than them, and we're bigger than them. So go ahead.
Also, I feel like why he's ultimately going to pass Elijah Mitchell on the depth chart this year is because of what he can do as a receiver. Mitchell's a good running back when healthy, and so is Mason. But I think the way the Niners offense has been constructed with McCaffrey is that a large part of their passing game revolves around the running back. And that's why Jordan Mason is standing out. Like, you'll be there in a few days. You'll see a couple of throws every day go from Purdy to Mason. And they're not just checkdowns. There was a screen today designed for Jordan Mason. They don't call those plays for Elijah Mitchell. That's for McCaffrey, and that's for Mason. So that's one. Another one. We're thinking, who's going to be the sixth wide receiver on this team? They got Jawan Jennings, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and then you got Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing. But then sixth spot, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray. Who's it going to be?
I had Ronnie Bell, Grant, and then now I'm hearing from you that Danny Gray
through 2 days, that's been the guy who's actually caught 3 passes from Brock. Ronnie Bell's caught in zilch.
Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions.
Please.
So it's the first 48 hours of camp. All right. Quite frankly, there has not been enough football played for us to actually know tendencies and have an idea of what we're seeing. It's just not enough yet. But what we can do is give first impressions. We can just give raw emotion of what we saw and what are some of the things that stuck out. So what's important when you come into camp? Who was in shape?
Yeah.
First day, who looked exactly the same as last year that they did coming in off of 4 months where they were supposed to be busting their ass the whole time?
Tavarius Ward, Debo Samuel, Spencer Burford, to his credit, looks like he's in great shape. That's not really been the issue with him. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Yetur Gross-Matos.
Good.
You know, Javon Hargrave for sure. Looks like he's in better shape.
Came in shape?
Good. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
I don't even know. I couldn't tell you who didn't. To me, what's interesting is day one, the Niners run defense is totally terrible. Awful. Just in terms of fitting it correctly and effort. And I write about it. Like, this is just terrible. Today was fantastic. So I think it's interesting, like, when there's a little bit of like motivation and the efforts there, they can stop the run. Absolutely. Yetur Gross-Matos is a really nice run defender. Seriously.
What do you think about Devondre Campbell so far?
I don't know.
He's a guy.
And he gave up a 20-yard catch to Eric Sober yesterday. That's not promising. I'm a little concerned about him.
Okay, but on the flip, conversely, what have you seen from D. Winters and Jalen Graham?
I think D. Winters is really explosive and quick, and he gets to the sideline fast. I don't know how violent he is. I can't see that in practice. Jalen Graham looks like a nice special teams player and backup Mike, but maybe, I don't know. I think D. Winters is the one that will emerge. But Kyle likes vets, man. It could take D. Winters a while. Like,
Speaking of
Devondre Campbell's probably going to have to play his way out of that role.
I think he should. I think it has to happen. If he makes it on the team, bro, then that means that D. Winters and Jalen Graham are fugazi.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Also, speaking of vets, I already have my breakout rookie of the team. Who's your breakout rookie so far?
Oh, so far, Malik Mustafa.
Malik Mustafa.
I thought it was going to be Renardo Green, but like, I've never seen a safety make plays like this. I mean, Jair Brown doesn't make plays like this. Now, grain of salt, he's playing with the backups, so he's like keying on Josh Dobbs Look,
let me tell you something.
Like, I don't want to put him in the Hall of Fame right now, but he's the best safety I've seen as a rookie.
Yeah, but look at it this way: it's like recruiting a kid to go to a D1 school, but he plays at like a weak ass like Christian private school in a private school league, and he's the biggest kid there. It's like, well, how do you scout a kid that's literally bigger than the entire league itself? He's bigger than his offensive lineman. It's like, well, you scout him is because he needs to actually run for 500 yards a game. He needs to be doing what he looks like against these people. Like, so if Malik Mustafa is really showing out and he's on the second team, that's what he's supposed to be doing.
But when they took him and when I came into camp, I wasn't expecting him to do anything. I'm thinking 5'10", 210. He's going to show when it's like a preseason game. Like, he's going to light someone up. He's going to be physical. He's going to tackle. But he's not going to make plays in coverage in camp. I mean, Jair Brown doesn't even do that much. Like, who does? He does a freaking pair like every day. So he seems like the mid-round gem that they have one a year. It seems like it's him, not Garendo.
Garendo's down. Cowling's not a guy.
Maybe he is, but not yet. He hasn't shown it yet. This guy's shown it.
How about Green, Renardo Green?
He gave up like 3 catches today, but they were like 5 to 7 yard catches to Jawan Jennings, so you can't really knock him. Like, he's competing. I think he had a couple plays that would have been TFLs, but he hasn't like had that big play yet. I think he's close. Was what I would want to say. I think he's good, but he hasn't really made a play yet. Hasn't given up a big one either. I think he's good. It's 2 days. It's 2 days.
Definitely. Yeah. And we haven't seen Huff back yet. Does Jair Brown look the part? Does he look like he's carried on?
Yeah, he's fine. I mean, he's not giving up big plays over the top. He gave up a catch to George Kittle in coverage today. But I think we've seen a lot from Jair Brown, and it's hard to like make plays have to come to you a little bit at safety in training camp, especially in coverage. But one player who's really standing out in a negative way so far is Josh Dobbs.
Talk to me.
He's inaccurate, man. The ball comes out funny. He doesn't seem like he has confidence in where it's going. He threw a pick yesterday on an underthrown deep ball when the guy was open. He threw a pick today on an underthrown deep ball when the guy was open. He also, like, there's a lot of crossing routes in this offense where the receiver's running shallow cross or a dig, and it's like you have to throw the ball on time and out in front, and he's like missing high and missing behind. It's like,
It's all over the place.
I just don't think it's a good fit, man. I know he had some good games last year, but I don't think it's a good fit. And I think they need to give Tanner Mordecai a look.
One more question from
also,
me.
real quick, Brandon Allen's taking all of the second team reps. That's not true. That's not true. I can't say that. Sorry. Disregard that. Disregard that. Most of it.
Strike. So,
strike.
Bedside banner. What does the coaching staff look like? Do they look interested? Do they look like they want to be there? How does Nick Sorensen look? Is he vocal? Does he like take the receiver? Does he take like the DBs off by himself? Like, what's kind of like the thing that he likes to do? Is he like?
Okay, so I was watching for like 8 minutes today. I put a little video up. I noticed. I like to keep an eye on Kyle during that first part of the practice. Like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? And he was talking to Brandon Staley for a long time.
Okay,
I was thinking like,
that's good.
Yeah, but it's like he used to talk to D'Amico and Saleh. He used to talk to the defensive coordinator. Now he's talking to the assistant head coach, and the defensive coordinator is like kind of wandering around, sort of going from one, like kind of floating around from one drill to the next. And it's like, Nick, you don't really seem like a very strategic person, which is cool. I mean, you might be good at your job, but Staley seems like he's like, cozying up to the coach, and they're talking football and
a real conversation, and you're with your hands, so you just want to coach the whole practice.
Mm-hmm. So that'd be something I'd be like, if I'm the defensive coordinator and you're talking to the coach, like, nah, man, come over here. I need your help.
Yeah.
Come over here, buddy. I need your help. Why don't you go over and talk to the linebacker? Like, do something. Don't just like schmooze with the coach.
I agree with that. It's like, I kind of have a conversation with Brandon, like, yo, for what it's worth, I kind of need you out here with the guys during practice. You're not, like, I understand that you're the assistant head coach, but you are a defensive guy. I kind of need you over here. So, I mean, I guess
to me, it looks like you're making an end around on my job with my boss. Like, I would have taken the opportunity to delegate right there. Hey, Brandon, I'm your boss.
But you know what?
But is he? Because Brandon's the assistant head coach.
Dog, it probably looks like exactly like it is, where it's like, hey, look, you're the defensive coordinator. Okay, like, run along. I got the job. I'm the assistant head coach, right? You're lucky we got you the job. Just don't screw it up, kid. I'll see you week 1. I have a game plan ready for you. Maybe one of those type deals too, where Brandon Staley maybe just kind of be like a defensive coordinator in spirit, or maybe he's the analytics guy.
It's interesting today too, is like Brandon Staley, Jennifer Lee Chan wrote it. He was yelling from the sidelines to the defense. Like, during practice, Sorensen is behind. He's next to Kyle, they're sort of behind the quarterback, and they're both on their walkie-talkies calling plays. Well, Staley's like the coach on the sideline. He's sort of like filling in the gaps. He's standing in the sideline and he's yelling at the players. He's talking to the players. He's going over. It's like, dude, is that what you're going to do during games? Are you just going to be like the shadow coach? Are they going to have two defense? It looks like they have two defensive coordinators. So what it looks like.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
It looks like two.
It looks like,
he doesn't work for Sorensen. He works next to Sorensen.
Yeah. There's no hierarchy there. Hold on, wait a minute. And if the reason why, you know what? There is a hierarchy, right? There's no such thing as lateral movement, right?
It's Staley and then Sorensen.
There you go. There is a hierarchy. And the problem is that
I don't like that.
Why there's a hierarchy is because the reason why it's unspoken is because there's a hierarchy. It's like,
I don't like that at all. If you want to give that role to Brandon Staley, freaking put your whole name behind it. Make him the defensive coordinator and live with the decision. Don't like weasel him into the role.
Yeah. I mean, but
not fair to Nick Sorensen or the team.
But this is what we get for trying to treat them as honest brokers, because we saw this coming very early, but we reserved judgment because we wanted to give Nick Sorensen a chance. It's like, nah, you got rid of I forgot his name now. Who is he? Uncle Ben. What's the guy? What's his name? Steve Wilkes. Coach Wilkes. So, I'm sorry. So, the reason why, I'm sorry. So, Steve Wilkes, he was there. You got rid of him. The guys didn't like him. They had to move on. I get it. Okay. And one of the reasons why is like they gaslit it. He didn't deserve to be fired. But one of the reasons why you have to move on is because if you lose the voice in the locker room, it doesn't matter what comes after that. If the guys don't believe in you, you literally cannot be there for whatever reason, fair or unfair. It's just football. So you went and got Nick Sorensen. But the deal is that you brought in Nick Sorensen, and there's a whole like blind spot on Nick Sorensen getting hired. It's like we forget about the 8 weeks where we tried to get everybody who wasn't nailed down to an NFL job or a head coaching position, and they all said no, right? So it's kind of like they pieced it together.
Think about it from a player's perspective, okay? So it's awkward that you brought in Brandon Staley and you're wondering, like, what's the deal? But, I'm not thinking about it because I'm talking to Sorensen. He's the one leading the meetings. But then you're out of practice. I notice it. You're going through your drills and you look over and it's like, oh, there's the head coach talking to Brandon really intently for a long time. And then there's a defensive coordinator kind of just floating around. Like, who is in charge here? When I get benched, who's benching me? Is it Brandon or is it Nick? Who do I go to here? Who has the final say? I mean, I would want to know. I would notice things. I did notice that today, and I don't have anything at stake.
It's going to be Nick, and Brandon's going to be standing in the back of the room smoking a cigarette in the dark corner.
He's the Wizard of Oz. He's the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, he is, dude. I mean, we already see this. It's going to be Brandon.
He needs to not yell at players during. He needs to ratchet it down a notch. He needs to take it down from 11 to like a 4. You are only making Nick Sorensen look bad.
Well, one thing I will say is that if he's doing all of that during practice, and I'm going to be able to see it myself in a couple of days, but if he's doing all of that during practice, is one thing for certain is that he's got his fingerprints on the defense now. He's obviously knows what he wants to be done. He's going to put his ethos into what he wants done. My thing is that Brandon Staley is a good defensive coordinator. That's one thing he does do well. The only problem is that he's a great defensive coordinator up until the fourth quarter, and then he turns into Kyle Shanahan. That's why they're like kindred spirits, bro.
He gave up a 27-point lead. He gave up a 27-point lead in the playoff game,
He is the defensive Kyle Shanahan. He is. They deserve.
And here's the thing. I think again, like that's why I would be uncomfortable. Here's my interpretation of what I saw today. Mm-hmm. Kyle thinks Brandon's really smart. Yeah. Kyle likes talking football with Brandon. I don't know that Kyle feels that way about Nick. Did Nick get he could have promoted Nick last year, but he was like, no, I'm going to bring in Steve Wilkes. And then he doubled back because the players like Nick Sorensen. But when it's time for Kyle to shoot the breeze for 8 minutes during a down period of practice, it's Brandon. And I think that speaks to where he stands in the hierarchy. He has Kyle's ear in a way that I'm not sure Nick does. We'll see.
Well, coaching is a very knuckle drag profession from a position of like, it's very like top down. You know who is who. There's no question about it. So, and they virtue signal towards it. And one of the things about practicing is that, if you go back and you look at just how teams are built, you can obviously see that Brandon Staley, just look at it this way. Take the names off. Just call the facts. Let's just read the play sheet. All right. Nick Sorensen's jacket he's a rookie defensive coordinator who's never been in a position before, who's coaching one of the most talented defenses on his first job ever, and they're fresh out of a Super Bowl, and they're led by their defense. Yeah. While them getting rid of a seasoned defensive coordinator who he himself could not withstand the barrage of criticism coming from inside the locker room.
Also, the first choice was Bill Belichick, the greatest defensive coach ever. And the first choice was Steve Spagnuolo, who just destroyed the head coach in the Super Bowl. Second choice, greatest defensive coach ever. And then somehow, some way, they Frankenstein this Nick Sorensen, Brandon Staley combination. It's like, okay, let's have Nick Sorensen's body, but Brandon Staley's head.
Bro, it's almost like if I'm Nick Sorensen, I would have said that to Kyle and be like, so Belichick said no, and you asked me. Like, what? Dude, why don't you just shoot me in the head now? Like, bro, I'm being set up. Like, it's like, so Belichick said no. Cool. Who else said no? It's just like, we went and saw, some great coaches, some pretty good coaches. You know, they said no. Who don't know? Who else? Who else? Well, you know, we talked to Mike Vrabel. He said, "Oh, Mike Vrabel. Whoa, yeah." He said no.
Yeah,
okay.
Spagnuolo wasn't really into it, and he tried to get
what's his name?
Jeff Ulbrich, but Jeff Ulbrich really wasn't going for it.
So, and would you? How? Forgive me, but why are you asking me for the?
You're out of options, and you're kind of afraid of the players revolting on the next coach, like they did with the previous one. Oh,
you guys just fired Steve Wilkes, right? So he got fired. She's like, yeah, but we're so right. Kyle even put out a press conference. He said, "You were ready last year." She's like, "Really?" He said that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. He said you were ready last year. He's just like,
yeah. But there's a real opportunity for you to not get fired after the first year. It could happen.
Hey, bro, it's upward movement. And you're forgetting about your relationship with Nick Bosa. He really likes you. It's just like, all right, dude,
I heard he likes you.
It's kind of like, all right, bro, like, yeah, okay. So I own a MAGA hat. Whatever. Cool. But that doesn't mean that I'm a great defensive coordinator. So what are you gonna at least put somebody in here? And it's just like, look, we got Brandon Staley here. He's gonna look out for you, okay? You know, but for the time being, you just run everything. And
no, that's not what it is. It's Brandon Staley. Look, Brandon Staley's gonna be the defensive coordinator. We don't want people to know because he's got kind of a bad reputation.
That's true.
So you are gonna be the front man. And anytime Brandon makes a mistake and messes up, you're going to be the one who has to answer for it at the press conferences. But anytime something good happens internally, we're going to give Brandon the credit. How does that sound?
Dude, it's a win-win. Trust me. Yeah. You're not going to see it now, but like it's one of those like cry now, laugh later situations. You'll get it. All right. Yeah. Just do what I say. So one thing that you're going to have to understand is that all blame. Okay. Just, you know, and you've seen this with Steve before he got out of here, but all blame in terms of defense, especially when we lose games in crucial moments.
The Niners could lose 10-9. It's your fault for giving up 10.
It's got to be on you. All right. Yeah. And, you know, we're going to go with a couple of, you know, I should have known it was my fault. You know, I'm not necessarily prepared. You know, some of the guys are going to add a little bit of the commentary passive aggressively for effect. You may get a couple of comments from the third turnbuckle from Nick Bosa. The key is that you take this the Niner way. Okay? You take this the Niner way. 1, 2, 3. Kyle never gets hired. Kyle never gets fired on 3. 1, 2, 3. Kyle never gets fired. Let's go. Let's go.
And so what do you say? After a loss? It was my fault.
It was my fault.
This one was on me.
Even when we win, I want you coming in apologizing for the lead that we did not surpass.
And I want you to apologize to Brandon first.
Always.